Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds. Sean Reynolds. That's who I am from Sportsnet. About to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny postgame show after ho-hum. Just another example of the Winnipeg Jets playing to their identity, playing to the Rick Bowness system, breaking a team that comes in a little bit fragile. Good to see them get back to that, to be quite honest. It feels like over the last little while, the Jets maybe haven't been playing at the top of their game. Canadians were a good example of that. You go back to the Colorado game, they definitely look to be on the top of their game, but losing to the Sharks, going down 2-0 to the Ducks. I think there was starting to be a trend lately, not of the Jets losing, only one loss in however many games it's been. And I know that they lose, they even get a point out of that game as well. But just the idea of the Jets getting back to a place where a team comes in like a little bit of a wounded fawn. Like we know that the Detroit Red Wings they'd had one win in their previous 7 games before that. Their head coach had described them as being fragile coming into the game. So going into that game, I was looking for the Winnipeg Jets to do exactly what they did in that game. Just kind of pedal to the metal, keep playing their system, wait for the opposing team to make mistakes, pounce on those mistakes. But one of the elements I really like that they added was the amount of shots that they were taking from the point. It kind of bleeds over from the previous game, and that I thought the Jets were maybe overpassing it a little bit against the Montreal Canadiens, and they end up getting their way back into that game by just throwing it to the net. Cole Perfetti's goal is just a shot, not from the point because it's Nemestikov, but close to the point where Brendan Dillon is basically getting the shot across to Nemestikov just to open up to Lane to get it on net. Dirty. Just get it to the front of the net, let something take over. What I like about that is the Jets don't walk away from that Montreal Canadiens game, get that point and think, okay, we got away from it. Now we can get back to trying to pass it around and do whatever. They don't do that in this case. They get right back into it and continue from the last game what they're doing in this game by just, getting that shot to the front of the net the way it goes in. Lucky bounce. In the end, it goes off of a defender's glove. It goes off Jeff Petrie's glove and into the net, does not go off Morgan Barron. So yeah, it's a little bit of a lucky bounce for the Winnipeg Jets. It just absolutely went off his glove into the perfect spot. But that's what happens when you get dirty. That's what happens when you go to the front of the net. That's what happens when you recognize people in the front of the net and throw the puck there. Jets doing a great job of that. Other teams can't do it as easily against the Jets because the Jets defenders are just so good at kind of either shutting down lanes up top or facing the puck and not allowing it to reach the net, or clearing out the front of the net and making sure that the likes of Connor Hellebuyck and Laurent Brossoit have the ability to see that puck as it's coming in. Speaking of Laurent Brossoit, I just have to say we're going to have to get into this conversation about him. I know I'm just going to not preface it by saying both these goaltenders for the Jets started out not the best. At the beginning of the season, there were questions about it. I remember someone in here suggesting after Hellebuck's start that, 7 more years of this, or whatever it was for his extension. I put it like this. A big storyline going forward has been the fact that Connor Hellebuyck took a little bit of time to figure his way into the Jets system. And once he did, his game got better and better. And that's been our understanding of what happened to Connor Hellebuyck. Well, it should be your understanding at this stage as well that that's what we're seeing out of Laurent Brossoit as well, because he had that start that a lot of people viewed as being slow. And yes, he didn't look the best that he's looked in a Winnipeg Jets jersey. Definitely didn't look the best that he'd looked in his time during his time with the Vegas Golden Knights. But because he doesn't have the runway that Connor Hellebuyck has, the amount of games to play, I think it's taken a little bit longer maybe to see it or to establish the pattern for it to not be such a small sample size. But Laurent Brossoit, this is an entirely different game if it's not for Laurent Brossoit. One of the things I will say about this, and one of the things that I really like about the way this Winnipeg Jets team plays, there's key moments in that game that Laurent Brossoit makes it happen for the Jets and turns things around. Now, the difference as I see it between this Jets team and maybe Jets teams in the past is when their goalie was getting hot, they would just kind of sit back and say, okay, he's got this one. Throw it in autopilot. Let's watch Connor Hellebuyck save the day. We'll allow 44 shots. No big deal. He'll do this and we'll get through. what I see happening with this Winnipeg Jets team is a way of honoring their goaltender, right? A way that Lauren Brossoit tonight makes a huge key save at a key time of the game. That Alex DeBrincat save, sliding across the crease, is absolutely huge. And rather than sitting back and being like, he got that one, I wonder if he can get another one, the Winnipeg Jets head back down up ice after that and go and honor their goaltender by being like, you just kept this a 2-goal game or a 1-goal game or whatever it is. Now we're going to go back down and we're going to stretch the lead. We're going to honor you by you took one off the board. We're going to put one off the board. I love the mindset of a team that does that, because I think it's exactly what I'm suggesting. I think it's honoring your goaltender. I think the Winnipeg Jets as a team spent far too many years not honoring Connor Hellebuck by going out and saying, you took care of us, now we take care of you. I know he didn't mind it because he's that kind of guy who's like, bring it on, baby, pile it on my shoulders. But nevertheless, I think that it had been an issue with that team for a lot of years that, they would not honor their goaltender when their goaltender was standing on their head, honoring their teammates. They're doing it now. Tonight is a perfect example of that, I think. And I just got to say, I think it is another one of those things that show that this Winnipeg Jets team is a different team than we've seen in a long time. To me, I take a look at a night like this, and a lot of people will say it's a throwaway. It's a weak team that came in here. The Detroit Red Wings are in free fall right now. No doubt they are. The Jets can't help that. All they can do is go out and play the game that they need to play. They did that. And to me, this game is just another huge reason for people to believe that the Winnipeg Jets are legit. Never mind the fact that they now find themselves in first place in the Central Division once again. Something else we're going to have to get talking about. And the best way to do that is to bring in the man with the best music in the business. He can talk about it. Here comes Kenny. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, the man with the best music in the biz, also one of the best dressed customers you'll find in the biz. And of course, we know that to be the case because, of course, Ken, when he needs to be dressed, doesn't do it himself. That would be a mistake. Don't do that, Ken. You should do what I suggest our audience should do, and that's, of course, head on down to Corden Avenue and go see the folks at Vittorio Rossi. Walk in the door, loudly proclaim that Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for Frankie and the boys, and they will take care of you, make you, do you up just right. I got to say, one of the things I learned from them is how good a purple tie looks with a blue suit. I got it. It's one of my standards. I head to it all the time. Had a buddy text me one time, Ken, and say, boy, you sure love that purple tie with the blue suit. And I was like, listen, if you were educated by Frankie and the boys down at Vittorio, you'd love it too. So get on board. Ken, what'd you see out there tonight?
Yeah, we both got the memo. The purple, unintentional matching. Good work on that front here. Yeah, I mean, Jets were very good. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, I mean, like you said earlier in the open, Detroit is not in a great place in terms of where they are in terms of their own team game. I think they've got a lot of offensive talent. I think they're struggling to find where they need to be at defensively, but that's not the Jets' problem. The Jets did what they need to do. They got contributions throughout the lineup. Anytime the second line or the fourth line is in for two different goals, that's a big night for them. Axel Jonsson, Fjällby, pretty impressive showing there. Really nice goal. Gets himself a helper. We have Cole Perfetti and David Gustafsson both playing in their 100th NHL games tonight, which, again, is a kind of a reminder of where those guys are at in terms of their experience and development. You have the top line absolutely on fire. It looks like Gabriel Vilardi would like a few more games to be played on a certain network that he's been interviewed on by you a couple times of late here. He's absolutely on fire. Nikolai Ehlers back to very blunt post-game analysis, even though he was involved in a goal and had an assist, a really pretty one. Wasn't happy with a couple of his own turnovers. Didn't think that he was playing overly well personally in the last little bit here, and that's a good sign because even though Ehlers is not at his best, that line has been absolutely dominant. Sean, 12 goals, 25 points, in 4 games and change.
Crazy.
You touched on Laurent Brossoit, and hey, I'm telling you right now, we were telling people to be paid. It's a wake-up call, early wake-up call to the chat room that said the Jets might have to investigate an upgrade at the backup goalie position 3 or 4 starts ago. I mean, this is, just deep breath situation, like I said at the time, and I'm not going to overreact here, but lo and behold, Laurent Brossoit has lowered his goals against to 2.50 and raised his save percentage to 911 in only 8 starts this year. We know he's going to start probably on December 31st. That will be his 9th start in 34 games. And, I think he only played 3 of the first 17 or somewhere in that range. So now we're looking a lot closer at the 25 to 20. At that point, Sean, we were wondering, well, how the heck is he going to get to 20 starts, let alone 25 to 27? 9 of 34, all of a sudden you're looking at a scenario where Laurent Brossoit, as long as he's healthy, can comfortably hit the 20 to 25. I think it'll be 25 plus range, which will be good for both Hellebuck and Brossoit. Josh Morrissey, another impressive showing here, another assist, and we saw him this morning, John. I mean, it's not looking pretty, but man, the fact that he's able to just gut it out, not even worry about putting on a full cage, and that is a ridiculous shiner he is working through, and just eating up valuable minutes on the back end. Dylan Sandberg, Rick Bowness, pretty blunt in terms of wanting more shot blocks. Well, when the game is on the line, the Jets came through with a big penalty kill and got a big shot block from guess who? Dylan Sandberg, who also has the nice stretch pass to Axel Jonsson-Fjallby on his goal. So it's tough to find an issue that the Jets had in this game. The jokesters in the chat room will say, hey, no complaints about the power play tonight because they didn't get one. But I mean, hey, in a week where special teams had been their undoing in a loss and an overtime loss, well, penalty kills 2 for 2, and the power play didn't get a chance. So this was a pretty complete game overall. I thought Cole Perfetti just absolute masterclass in vision again. Nate Schmidt called it next level stuff when I asked him about it the other day it was yesterday at the off day. Just everyone is looking at him, and Cole Perfetti is looking for the guy who is on the back door ready for a tap in. I mean, he was in a great spot to shoot.
Great
but
pop out.
Just
Great
incredible
pop out.
vision. I mean,
If you watch that
just absolute quiet zone special. I mean, Vilardi is just absolutely looking better and better every single game. The things that he does with and without the puck are outstanding. And here's the scary part. He's just starting to get in the groove. That's a scary proposition for the opponents of the Winnipeg Jets. That's now 5 goals and 10 points in his 4-game point streak since that game in LA, when he really started to feel like himself again, delivers the game-winning goal in that dominant third period. He's just getting better and better and better and better. And he's a guy that really fits with and this is what we were talking about before, Sean, before they were even put together because of the injury. We knew this was coming. They would be, reunited. Now, of course, Connor is not there and Ehlers is there, but just the ability of Vilardi to be strong along the boards, to show off those incredible hands. Matthew Thompson here says Vilardi is the next Pavelski. He's an incredible tipper of the puck. We just haven't seen it a ton yet, and that's an incredible tool to have when you have high volume shooters Sorry, I guess I shouldn't call Mark Scheifele a high volume shooter, but he's a guy who can be a lethal shooter. Nikolai Ehlers is a high volume shooter. Kyle Connor is a high volume shooter. These are guys that will flourish with Vilardi because of Vilardi's patience and his ability to get to the net. Well, he's talking about the trade there, Sean, is what he's talking about. That okay.
I know. Anyway, finish your point.
Sorry. Anyway, I love the way that he's playing. He's a guy who is fun. We've seen this before with the Jets. We've seen this. Andrew Copp comes to Winnipeg, first line player. Blake Wheeler comes to Winnipeg, grows into a first line player. Gabriel Vilardi, first round pick, second and third line player, middle six guy in LA, gets an opportunity to play on the top line and shows that he has the ability to be a point a game player. Now, of course, for Vilardi, he needs to stay healthy and do that over a long stretch of time. But I'm telling you right now, there is nothing that we've seen so far that would suggest Vilardi cannot be a point a game player over the course of an 82 game season, provided he's in the lineup with regularity. I mean, this guy is an outstanding player, incredibly smart, very, very bright, and is not afraid to go to the hard areas. So guess what? I mean, big body guy, likes to go to the blue paint, has incredible hands, and likes to crack a joke or two about the Macarena. I mean, I think he's kind of growing into a fan favorite quickly, don't you think?
Oh, God. Fan favorite. Not only that, I honestly think, when he showed up, I started questioning, how he would be with the media. He didn't seem like he was the most, the most open guy.
Agreed.
Kind of honest, but, it didn't seem like, it's not that he didn't like doing the media. It was almost like he's just like, it's almost like you talk to him, it's almost like he doesn't even realize that there's cameras rolling. Do you know what I'm saying? This kind of almost indifference to what's happening. And I have to say, Ken, I think it's hilarious because people are giving a shout out for the post game that I did with Gabe Vilardi and kind of the kibitzing that we were doing back and forth. And I just have to say, I thought it was hilarious because he came out and it walked out and it was like, fancy meeting you here again. And so I started out with a little bit of a joke to say, like, looks like you're intent on making these post-game meetings between you and I after national games a steady thing. And the look on his face was just deadpan, like, what's the question? Right? So it was a funny moment.
No, I don't need to see you every game, but thank you for having me.
Yeah, but it's funny because then as the interview goes on, he picks up and he gets into it, just like the last one. What I do realize with Gabe is sometimes you want to like crack a joke to get the guy going in the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Gabe's not going to get going in the beginning. He'll get going when he's ready to get going, but he has. I guess what I'm saying is I feel like he's growing into how he's handling the media. I think he's growing into how he's playing here. But honestly, Ken, I just think he's growing as a player by leaps and bounds, and he knows it. I think Gabe Vilardi has found himself in a situation that he wasn't sure and had been questioning himself for a number of years before that. He was questioning that this is the kind of player that he could be or would ever grow into. That's my takeaway from what we're seeing from him right now. I'm not saying he lost belief. Players have to believe, but if a player is being absolutely true with themselves, did Gabe Vilardi really think he was going to be the kind of guy who would walk in and make it so that a team that is missing Kyle Connor, a guy who was in the hunt for the Rocket Richard Trophy, did he really think he's the kind of guy who would come in and have it so a team isn't missing that guy at all? That line may be hotter now than before. And I know that, these things always go in little stretches. We all know this, right? The third line started out the year and was tearing things up offensively. They've gone fairly quiet now. Mason Appleton started out the year and was looking like he was going to challenge for top scoring on the Jets. He's gone quiet now. All these things go in waves, and clearly right now the Winnipeg Jets and that top line are riding a wave. But it's got me thinking, Ken, and this is a conversation I would really like to have. In fact, let's do Sweet Lou right now because I'm going to do the buy on this one. So give Sweet Lou a shout out because I want to jump into that.
Sure, buddy. For the folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, whether you're buying, selling, curious about what the house on the corner is going for, you can contact Lou Ferlin at Roll LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community.
Love Sweet Lou. Okay, I'm buying, and I'm going to get into this. I can see there's some people in the chat room who already agree with me, some people who don't agree at all. I'm buying the idea that this line is so good that when Kevin Shoveldayoff is addressing this roster and the trades that he wants to make going down the stretch here, that he should be thinking of a second line center and one that he's shaping who he gets, his decision on who he gets, specifically around the idea that they should be able to play and feed the puck, this kind of center that can play, feed the puck to Kyle Connor more often. And this is why I say this. I still think, as good as Gabe Vilardi is, as good as what we're seeing from Nick Ehlers here, I still think when it comes to the offensive players on your team, there is no doubt about it in my mind that Mark Scheifele, a huge driver of what's going on with this top line, and someone we should probably talk about more, because I don't think people are talking about it that much. Some people are. Yeah. We didn't touch on it in the broadcast. But Mark Scheifele and Kyle Connor, I believe, are the two biggest drivers on your team. If you can get what you are getting right now out of Mark Scheifele, Gabe Vilardi, and Nikolai Ehlers, and yes, again, riding waves, there's going to be times things are down. But I think a lot of people were expecting that Gabe Vilardi was going to be here. They wanted him there at the beginning. And then, well, when Kyle Connor gets back, they'll move out Nick Ehlers and they'll move Kyle Connor back in. Now, and unless everything goes quiet, I ask you, as good as Kyle Connor is, how much does he raise the ceiling on that line? And maybe a better question is, how much do you need him to raise the ceiling on that line? Because if you can use him to raise the ceiling on the second line from here to here, and you can only use him to raise the ceiling on the first line from here to here, then I think you need to be taking a look at the idea of finding a center who fits with Kyle Connor, and then you've got this first line that is unbelievable, the third line that is going to be taking on some of the other team's top lines, and now you're in a situation like I believe it was the 2016 Pittsburgh Penguins when they had the HBK line, the Hagelin, Bonino, and Kessel line. That line got to go out night after night after night against third line competition. If you can get a guy who can get the puck to Kyle Connor in the places that Kyle Connor likes to get the puck, and that line starts going out against third lines, I don't know that you can match the depth of this team, Ken. If you're able to make that pickup, and then by the virtue of making that pickup, you're taking a look at Vladislav Nemesnikov moving down to the fourth line. We're seeing what he's doing already with the second line. Honestly, the depth of this team would be insane. People in the chat right now saying this is the deepest the Jets have ever been. I don't agree with that. Andrew Copp doesn't agree with it. We talked about to him earlier today, and he talked about thinking, hey, this team is doing real good and they're playing to their potential, maybe even up above their, I don't think he said that, but around their potential. But he still believes that 2017-18 roster was just the best assembled Jets roster we've seen. At this point, I agree, and
especially because of the defense, right? I think that the
especially because
forward groups are very similar, but it's the defense that is the separator for right now.
No doubt. And that's an entirely fair comment. But if you can do what I just suggested, depending on who they get on that second line, when you've got Vladi Nemesnikov playing on that fourth line, I'd almost argue we talk about that 2018 team, Ken, and how Brian Little was the fourth line center. I'd almost suggest that Vladi Nemesnikov would be the better version of a fourth line center for what you need that fourth line to be. This is nothing against Brian Little, just that Brian Little is typically a guy who would slot further up the lineup. But I'm just buying wholesale on the idea that what I'm seeing from Nick Ehlers, who is basically feeling like he's playing with Mark Scheifele for the first time, and what we're seeing from Gabe Vilardi, who I think is just beyond happy to have found himself playing and being a Winnipeg Jet. I'm buying the idea that you can break up Mark Scheifele and Nick Ehlers and still Kyle Connor, and find a way to have Kyle Connor drive a line that is almost untouchable in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super interesting concept, and the beauty of this debate is that we're going to have five more weeks to see what it looks like over the longer stretch of time. And I mean, there were some fantastic moments, and we know that Rick Bowness was open to having Ehlers and Connor with Scheifele to start the year. I was in Banff last year. That was their plan, and the narrative was, especially we'd just seen the Jets in Calgary. Calgary lost, they lost their top line. And Tkachuk leaving, or 2/3 of the top line, with Gaudreau leaving in free agency and Tkachuk being traded. But one of the stories I wrote was, well, could this line rival what Calgary got from Lindholm, Gaudreau, and Tkachuk? And it only lasted 6 periods, essentially 5 periods. So we didn't really know. And hey, Ehlers, Scheifele, and Connor had an incredible game in Calgary a couple years ago. But it didn't last. It was like 2 or 3 games that they had this one ridiculous game, multi-point effort for all 3 guys, and it didn't last. But I do think there is potential for this to happen, Sean. I'm not ready to go there yet, and I'm not saying the Jets shouldn't do it. I just want to see it for a little bit longer before I'm as committed to the buy as you are. I'm definitely not selling on it, but I'm not ready to buy it quite yet.
No doubt. Are you selling anything or buying?
Or
what
are
else
you just
attacking my take, Ken? Is that what's happening here right now?
I'm not attacking it. I just need to see it a little bit longer. That's all. I do think there's incredible potential, and there too. I mean, so to your point, Cole Perfetti is in a good spot again. I think he's feeling with a little bit more confident. Another great play today as a goal the other night, going to the blue paint. So now the second line is going to revolve around Cole Perfetti and Kyle Connor, right? So who's the center with them? Is it a guy like Elias Lindholm, or can you find someone a little different? I mean, he's a guy who's a very responsible two-way player. He hasn't been producing at the same level as he was at a couple of years ago, but I mean, we're going to talk about this as we move along. Who's available? Who makes sense? I mean, there's potential for that to happen for sure. And we know Nikolai Ehlers would love to have an explosive playoff, right? Like, this is a guy who can't wait to have his playoff breakout. And could it come with Mark Scheifele? Absolutely it could, especially the way they're playing right now. I love the fact that Nick Ehlers was still, self-critical. Didn't like one of the turnovers at just inside the blue line. Jets talked all morning about not feeding the transition game. The play that Ehlers makes with his, soccer play, it wasn't a traditional kick. It was more of a, step on the puck and move it. Exceptional. That line has got great potential. I'm not doubting that one bit. And man, if the Jets are, and we know the Jets have been open to having those two guys play on separate lines. We saw an extended period of Kyle Connor with Pierre-Luc Dubois. And Sean, part of that run was with Cole Perfetti, not last year, but the year before. So I know you're talking about this with Hustler the other day, and I'm listening after the fact and thinking, well, I remember this block, but I mean, Cole didn't stay healthy long enough to see what that line was going to be over the long term. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty wide open. I'm also buying the Jets improving their penalty kill, and tonight is a great example of why. Rick Bowness was pretty critical in the off day assessment, and today, he asked for more shot blocks. What does he get? An important shot block or two, some important clears. So I'm buying the Jets penalty kill, getting out of the bottom third is what I'm going to buy today, Sean.
Okay.
To wrap up that segment.
I just want to touch on something that Wiz Krilm says here. He says, if
there you go.
line stays hot, don't touch it. Ehlers has a harder time finding chemistry with line mates than Connor. KC will still produce without Scheif. Ehlers may not. I like that. Dunn, is this the one here? Dunn did dirty, says this line has allowed Ehlers to reach his potential. He always appeared to have so-so chemistry with his line mates. I just want to touch on this point here a little bit more than the last one made. Talked with Nick Ehlers, and I think I talked about this a little bit in the show, but again, 9 years Nick Ehlers has been on the same team as Mark Scheifele, and we have no idea what they look like together. I know that this is an opportunity that Nick Ehlers has been waiting for. He couldn't have responded better to it. The idea of him finding this chemistry and kind of knowing he always, if he was given that shot, could do something with it, that's important. And I also think the idea, kind of like what Steve Stamkos had to go through with the Lightning before they got to a place where they started winning cups. If you remember this, he was the first line guy, and even back in 2015 when this started, they had the triplets, Palat, Kucherov, and Johnson, and all of a sudden they were the first line, and Steve Stamkos, who'd been the face of their franchise, was their second line. He had a really hard time with it, but what ended up happening over that was a depth team like them was finding ways to get Steve Stamkos out against lesser competition. And it's one of the things that helped them win championships over the years. To me, I know a lot of people will see this as an attack on Kyle Connor, move him down the lineup. It's not that. To me, what it is, I think it's a vote of confidence in Kyle Connor that if you can put him somewhere, to the point that was made there, I think when you've seen him go with different line mates, he produces kind of everywhere he goes. So I'm confident he's going to find a way to produce wherever he goes. But B, if you can put him in a situation where he's against, lesser talent down the lineup and he can feast on that, I think Kyle Connor can run his own line. He doesn't need Blake Wheeler like he would have at one time.
Yep.
He doesn't need Mark Scheifele. He showed with Pierre-Luc Dubois that he could get there. I think time and time again, he's shown us that he's ready for prime time no matter where you put him. So yes, it's going to sound like sacrilege for me to say take the guy who's on the path to scoring 50 goals and was in the hunt for the Rocket Richard Trophy. Take him and get him off the first line. I know it's going to sound like sacrilege. To me, I'm thinking about how the Winnipeg Jets win a cup, what that looks like. And if you can take a line and put Kyle Connor on it, who I think is going to flourish no matter where you put him, and that gives you now 3 super solid lines to score and a fourth line that is very, very difficult to shut down and has an offensive flair to it. Boy, oh boy, I think that's hard to beat.
And Sean, just, to tie a bow on that thought, I know you mentioned the HBK line. Let's not forget that the Chicago Blackhawks, consistently used Patrick Kane's line against the Flyers' third line when they won the 2010 Cup also. So
exactly.
If it's okay for a future Hall of Famer to be utilized and deployed against the opposition's, third line instead of their top line, and that line can be dominant, it's not a knock on the player. It's more of a compliment on the player than a knock. So, yeah, it's an interesting concept, and I know, like I said, I'm not opposed to it, but I need to see more. So, but Kyle Connor, the Jets, it's interesting. There was I got some pushback when we talked about this the other day about the Jets potentially pursuing a second line center, and some people are like, oh, don't go back to the years where, I think some people are still feeling kind of burned that it didn't work out with Kevin Hayes. Well, who cares? It didn't work out. That's true. But it did work out the year before. The Jets' best run, it worked out perfectly with Paul Stastny. So the Jets have to be open to that. We've been talking about Kevin Cheveldayoff. He was on with Justin Bourne and Kipper today, Sean in the afternoon on the Fan, and I caught a good portion of the segment. And, it's not just us talking about the moves that the Jets have made here. It's getting national attention. And, I talked to Kipper on the phone the other day, and, the Jets are one of the biggest, we sometimes get, we sort of sometimes overdo it here, or people think we're just banging the drum in our market. This is one of the biggest stories in hockey. The Jets are leading the Central Division and have gone 7-1-1 in their last 9 games. Sean, they've got 21 games with 3 goals or fewer allowed, and most of those games, they were 2 allowed. 2.
Yeah.
They're one of the best defensive teams in the NHL. Their 5-on-5 play is incredibly sound, and if they can get they don't even need to get both special teams really cruising. They get one fixed and the other one sort of back towards league average, they'll become a real problem for a lot of teams.
No doubt. Okay, I just want to go and give the Teamwork Award once again to that top line and give a shout out to Cambrian for their service. We wanted to give a quick shout out to them, to the team at Cambrian Credit Union, from answering members' calls in less than 1 minute to having all their advisors available by video from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It makes it so easy to be a Cambrian member. It is obvious that the whole team at Cambrian cares about giving you great service. Well done, Cambrian Credit Union, Ken, that both you and I are proud members of, have our mortgages there, bank accounts, great stuff from them. We might as well do it too. Let's give the Pristine Roofing wake-up call. As you were saying, you kind of did it already, but you half-assed it, Ken. Why am I having to finish up your wake-up calls? No one delivers them better than you, but you're making me step in and do it and hand out the Pristine wake-up call to the people who are saying we were going to need a better backup. That's looking pretty ridiculous at this stage right now. So time for the Pristine wake-up call, which is deservedly earned for those who thought that. You know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the wake-up call. 1-204-981-6289 is who you call and how you call him to get him down if you have any roofing, siding, exteriors needs. And you can also always call Pristine Roofing as well at 1-204-237-7663. Okay, you have anything to say about Brossoit? I had gone on
I've got
here.
lots to say, yeah.
Went on a little bit of a rant about the idea that at the beginning of the year, Hellebuck wasn't playing well. And it's a well-established story with us now that with the runway that he had, he's come around. He figured out the team structure. No one was talking about Laurent Brossoit like that, but Laurent Brossoit, if you take a look at the amount of games that he's had, looks like he's traveled the exact same path. Is that what you're seeing, Ken?
Yeah, a lot of that for sure. And a lot of it was volume of games. Like, he just wasn't getting into a regular routine. I think there was, Laurent Brossoit is a deep thinker, Sean. This is a guy who is very in tune with his body. But, we also have to recall, and I mean, someone suggested this to me online earlier on, and I didn't dismiss it, but I wasn't really buying fully. But had a few conversations over the last stretch of time here, and let's not forget, Laurent Brossoit, when he signed here, there was no guarantee Hellebuck was going to be here, A, for the start of the year, and B, past the trade deadline. So Laurent Brossoit, although he knew there was a chance that Hellebuck was going to be here, there was a chance that he could be getting himself into that situation that he had been craving for, being a full-time starter, not just a guy who started down the stretch for the Vegas Golden Knights. So Connor Hellebuck signs on Thanksgiving, on the eve of the season getting ready, and Brossoit's now got to switch his mentality to, I got to be the best backup that I can be. And he's a team player and all those other things, but there was probably a little bit of time where that was a mental adjustment. He didn't bring that to the rink with him, but he probably spent a lot of idle time thinking about it, and he didn't get a lot of starts. So now he's got himself into a rhythm. He knows exactly where things are at for him. We know the schedule's we're going into the holiday break here coming up after Friday, but he knows he's going to be used, if not once a week, it'll be more like once every 8 or 9 or 10 days at the most. It's not going to be one start every 2 weeks. He's got himself in a rhythm. He's really, I think he also, Sean, I think he simplified things as well. I think early on, he was fighting the puck a little bit. We both thought that, especially the game in Montreal. He hasn't looked like that since. He was able to take a step back, take a deep breath, and go back to trusting the foundation that he has built since getting healthy after the hip surgeries. And now he's just feeling confident. And you can see him right now. He's just making instinctive saves. We know he can be athletic, but I loved how economical he's been with his movements. His rebound control is very good, and he just seems like he is much more comfortable in the crease right now, Sean. And that's a massive development for the Jets. And we've been talking about a ton of teams that have goaltending question marks. They probably would love to have a guy like Brossoit right now, but there's no chance. The Jets, they know he's an incredible insurance policy, and they know that he is an incredibly capable guy, no matter what, whether it's as a backup, whether he's got to play a run of games. But I think that the Jets will, roll with this 1-2 punch, and Laurent Brossoit will, continue to play well and earn an opportunity where he can go somewhere, potentially in the future to sort of be in more of a battle for a number one job that he absolutely covets.
Love this. If Kipper said this on that show, saying that coach of the year is Rick Bowness, there should be more chatter.
We should say coaches of the year based on how many games Scott Arniel ran the bench.
Yeah, no doubt, doubt.
Those still count as bonuses wins. I'm just saying that was
of course
collective.
Well, and you know what? It's interesting. I had a conversation about this because we know what happened, and this is by no means am I trying to take anything away from Scott Arniel. But with Jammer in town, Jamal Mayers, we had a lot of conversations, and he's just a great guy to talk hockey with. There's still a ton of guys in the game who played against him, right? So they come rolling into town here. They see Jammer. Everyone always kind of responds because Jammer played with a lot of them. Marty St. Louis, he played on a line with. We went down and did a game last year in Florida. Eric Stahl had played at the World Championships with him, all this kind of stuff. Guys love it when they see him. Guys who played against him were scared by him. They still love to see him. Had a lot of conversations with him. The one thing I had asked him about the scenario, because he believes the same as I did, Ken, that 1 year, the Florida Panthers, I had the Florida Panthers going to the Cup final against the Colorado Avalanche. They won the President's Trophy, but got swept in the second round by the Tampa Bay Lightning. I thought that was a out coaching situation. Every game looked the same as the other. Jamal essentially thought 81-91 in Konechny. Yeah, no, hey, listen, I think it's being explored, to be honest with you. But basically the question I asked him was, Scott Arniel coming in and covering for Bones, is this just a situation where you're a coach and your A1 job is to keep players on the system, and then what happens when the system changes, right? So anyone who's trying to say when Rick Bowness went out and Scott Arniel had his time in the sun, right? This is not to say Scott Arniel's not a great coach. This is not to say he wouldn't make a great coach, but this is still a situation where the coaching staff, in the absence of Rick Bowness, are teaching Rick Bowness' system. And if you believe in what the Jets are doing right now, and you think that the Jets somehow look different than they did 2 or 3 years ago, which they obviously do, that's the brainchild of Rick Bowness, right? At some point, if you switch that over, either, maybe a guy like Scott Arniel says the system that's in place, we're just going to continue with that system. Maybe he makes tweaks to his own system. But anyone out there who is trying to separate the success that we were seeing from Rick Bowness and suggest that Scott Arniel's success was more, you're talking about a guy who is coaching the other guy's system. You can't separate the success that the two are having. That's deserving of a wake-up call, if you ask me. Hey, it's been asked for. I got to point it out here. Tishu says, what? No headband for an original 6 win to move the team into first place. Come on, Renny, wake up. I heard your wake-up call, T-Will. And you know what that means? It means it's time to turn this into a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. Here we go. Starting to think my hair is matching the avatar again in the show. It's taken a long time to get back here, but that's good stuff. Okay, let's get into Mark Scheifele, because I don't think we've talked enough about him, and I think we've talked enough to let people know we believe he's our MVP so far this season. But I would say, like, Gabe Vilardi has had opportunities, not the opportunities had here, but opportunities to show who he is over his career. A lot of the stuff that we're seeing, the way he works the boards, amazing. His hands in tight around the net, amazing. The way he's able to find his teammates, amazing. That goal that he scores and the pop out that he does, just go back and watch that goal, the way that Moritz Seider thinks he has him and then he doesn't have him. That's elite hockey sense in front of the net, and a guy who knows his way around the net. He's clearly got all the tools, but I would argue this. If you take a look where Mark Scheifele goes this year and when players end up on a line with him, there's success. I don't think that's a fluke. Mark Scheifele is operating at an elite level this year, and I think in doing so, he is taking everyone around him and turning them into the elite version of themselves. Kyle Connor included, Nick Ehlers included, Gabe Vilardi showing stuff we never thought he was capable of. You were talking about the highest goal scoring pace we'd ever seen Kyle Connor on in the middle of that Rocket Richard Trophy race. I'm seeing a guy who's not only at the top of his game, but reaching those levels of making people around him not just better, but making them the very best versions of themselves. What are you seeing, Ken?
Yeah, I mean, Mark Scheifele's been exceptional. I mean, there was one play in the first period where there was a turnover, and you saw Mark Scheifele just get on his horse to get back to try to eliminate an odd man rush. And to me, that was one of those things where it's just become second nature, and that's something that he needs to be applauded for, because he got, taken to the cleaners for it quite a bit in the last couple of years here in terms of 200-foot commitment. It's been exceptional. It's been excellent. And it hasn't come at the expense of points. I mean, good defense is leading to good offense. And it's not just, it's not just empty calorie offense. I mean, for years, people were always all over Scheifele and Wheeler for empty net points. These guys, today's empty net point is a backdoor tap-in, but there's a goalie there. Mark Scheifele's been excellent, Sean. You and I were talking about this a couple weekends ago. We're happy that there's going to be international hockey on the calendar. Mark Scheifele is finally going to get his chance to play for Team Canada. And he's not just going to... a couple of years ago when we were talking about this, he kind of slipped out of the fray, but even then he was still under consideration for a 13th forward role. Sean, right now, Mark Scheifele is playing the kind of hockey that could have him playing with any number of people, whether it's Nathan McKinnon, could be Sidney Crosby, could be Connor Bedard.
It's Connor Bedard.
Could be Connor Bedard.
I'll tell you why it's Connor Bedard. If you see what happens when Connor Bedard gets out on the ice with Leon Draisaitl, what Leon Draisaitl does is he's big, he's strong, he doesn't give up the puck along the boards, he plays it well, he can make those passes in tight, he can finish when he needs to. Leon Draisaitl is a German. He's not going to be on Team Canada.
McDavid. I should have said. I said Bedard, but McDavid's another candidate.
McDavid. I knew where you were going as soon as you heard Connor. These two played in the past on Team North America.
Yeah,
they had chemistry. They like each other. They talk often in the off season. So there's a built-in thing here. And what I thought was, as Connor McDavid started, like, his star just kept ascending and ascending and ascending. Mark Scheifele got into a place where I didn't think not that he didn't have the talent, but he just kind of wasn't following that path with what we were seeing happen in Winnipeg here. I assert, to the point that we were just talking about, there is not a player on Team Canada, to your point that you were just making, that Mark Scheifele wouldn't be a good fit with. But to be a guy who can take and allow Connor McDavid to be peak Connor McDavid, not only off the rush, but also to play within that zone. The way that we're seeing Mark Scheifele play right now, he doesn't give up anything defensively, which is going to help a player like that at all. His puck possession metrics and how he works the boards is absolutely elite right now, and he can find guys everywhere. He is, in my opinion, quietly one of the best passers, if not, like, I'm thinking top 3 in the NHL right now, and his ability to pass the puck and find people. That's the kind of stuff you want for Connor to play alongside Connor McDavid. So to your point, Ken, the last time around when the Olympics were supposed to happen, they were canceled at the last minute. Based on the way he was playing, I had Mark Scheifele not making the Team Canada team that year, which we know weighed on him. We know that decision weighed on him, and it got to him. He said so afterwards. Mark Scheifele makes Team Canada in a walk right now, and they would be lucky to have him. He is absolutely showing to be one of Canada's best players right now, up the ice, down the ice, everywhere on the ice. And I stole the mic away from you. I stole the buffet away from you.
It's okay.
I'm just going to hand it back just because what you were saying just fits so well with where I was going to go with.
Yeah, and I mean, we both watched Bedard last night against the Colorado Avalanche, and the way that he's creating space for other people, I mean, you could see him, like, you could envision him playing with any number of players, Bedard being one of them, but McDavid, yes. We talked about Sidney Crosby, I think would be an unreal fit. We've often talked about, people at these international events, now that Patrice Bergeron isn't there, maybe McKinnon could play with them, but I think Scheifele would be a great fit with Sidney Crosby, the way that Crosby is playing right now. And hey, Gabriel Vilardi might be even working himself into a Team Canada conversation for the next World Cup as well, based on that skill set. I mean, a guy that we talked about a couple of years ago is Jonathan Huberdeau. He's definitely fallen out of that mix right now with how he's played. Vilardi would be kind of one of those risers. He'd obviously have to keep it up for a little bit longer, but I mean, that would be something that it's going to be super interesting to watch. We're excited about it. But, man, by the time those Olympics roll around, Scheifele's going to be right in the midst of that equation and conversation. Same with Josh Morrissey. Josh Morrissey is going to be playing for Canada at those next 2 international events and beyond. And, man, Sean, he might even be a lot of talk about, people thought maybe it's a built-in pairing with Devon Taves. what about Cale Makar and Josh Morrissey? I mean, we both talked to Makar last week when Makar was here, even though he was a late scratch. I mean, you got incredible mutual admiration society, but in terms of skill sets, man, what kind of a pairing would that be for Team Canada at an Olympic event or a World Cup event?
I just want to thank Beer League, who says Sean finally gets something right. I'm not sure what he was saying, but it's good to be acknowledged, especially by someone.
You've been heard. You've been heard.
Yes, with the hockey acumen of Beer League. Hey, I'll say this. Roy Mack also says 55 is playing up to his contract. I would argue 55 is playing way above his contract, and his contract right now is his old contract. He's playing above hit the contract that he signed. Like right now, if he's playing like this next year and you're paying him the $7.5 million, you are getting him at an absolute steal compared to what other players of that elite level are making around the league. Quickly, just wanted to say this story. I think you heard it, Ken, but Andrew Copp had said to me, interesting little story. I shared it on the broadcast. If you didn't hear it, it's worth repeating. For all those people who are all over and taking down the insiders for missing on the Mark Scheifele signing the extension. And I know that some people on the show were kind of taking us to task for it. I'm not suggesting for a second I'm an insider, but people on the show were taking us to task for the idea that we didn't even know this was going to happen. Andrew Copp is one of Mark Scheifele's very best friends. They keep in touch constantly throughout the summer. Andrew Copp was in a leadership meeting in Detroit and got out, and his teammates told him that Mark Scheifele signed a 7-year extension, and he thought they were lying to him. He thought they were trying to pull a practical joke on him until he grabbed his phone and pulled it out, and he'd missed 5 calls from Mark Scheifele trying to tell him that he just locked down that deal. So all you people out there who thought that like this was happening the whole time and the insiders just got it right, or sorry, totally whiffed on this one. This was a scenario by which one of the closest people to Mark Scheifele thought there was no way this was happening until it happened. It turned on a dime, and when it happened quickly. But I just thought that was fascinating insight by Andrew Copp, who I have to say, Ken, was a real joy to talk to before the game there. Class act with the media.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Called all of us by name, gave time to all of us, and not even would I say gave time. It was like he was coming up to you wanting to talk with everybody, and like I'd said, he was down by the bench talking with the players. It's another story that we did, talking to the Jets players through the glass, and I was like, can you give me anything interesting about the conversation? He knows what you're looking for, and he gave you a bunch of great stuff. He's not trying to be protective of what's happening in the bubble. He's there letting you in to see what happens here. It was great to see him again. Good to see that he's having the success he's having and wearing a letter in Detroit. Okay.
Yeah, and even too, one thing, these guys are all happy. Ben Sherratt, Michael Hutchinson came in after doing his extra skate. Right away is asking about golf. How's it going? How's everything? Told me a story about him getting into single-digit handicap and everything like that. And Copp and also too, he just got engaged this last summer. Ben Sherratt just had his second child. These guys they love their time here. And, they both had an interesting road for sure, different roads. Sherratt had to go through the ECHL briefly. A guy who had a Calder Cup run. Andrew Copp went the college route, came in. We were there for his first game and saw his entire career with the Jets. These are good human beings, and they still care about where they got their starts.
Mark Chipman coming out to say hi to Ben Sherratt on the bench. Actually, funny story quickly about Ben Sherratt. I don't know if he thought I was acting too big time or too cool for the city of Winnipeg, but after he moved to Montreal, I went and I was covering him there down in a game in Tampa one time. And he's like, hey, how's it going? And he came up and he talked to me, and he's like, oh, so do you ever get back to Winnipeg? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, I was wondering if you ever get to travel into Winnipeg. And I was like, Ben, I covered you for years in Winnipeg. Like, I'm from Winnipeg. He's like, you're from Winnipeg? I just thought you flew in. And I was like, you thought I flew in 5 days a week to come and cover the Jets?
Hey,
anyways,
the beauty of the Kenny and Renny show. A lot of people in Manitoba are figuring out, Sean, you are a Manitoban. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to see.
I never understood that. I do not.
It's your Ryerson education, buddy. It's your Ryerson education.
There you go. I always thought I gave off a country bumpkin vibe, Ken, to be honest with you. So it was actually nice to hear that people thought I was too urbane to be from Winnipeg. Okay.
Hey, hang on. Quick. We should just quickly touch on Rutger McGroarty. It's something that's on my mind here quickly. Named captain of Team USA for the World Junior. Big moment for him. I know we had Jason Buchla. He was confident that Rutger would make his way back for the World Junior event in Sweden. And it's just a massive development for a guy who is going to just have an absolutely... This will be his... We already know who he is, but this is his, announcing myself to the world. I expect, we know that Rutger's committed to Michigan. He's going to have a big second half. They're trying to win a national championship, but I'll be shocked if he doesn't turn pro in the spring. And what that means, we're not sure. But I do expect him to be, signing a contract once his NCAA season is over as a sophomore. And this is a great opportunity for him. Elias Salmonson is going to play a humongous role. I think he's an alternate captain with Sweden. Great event for him as well. And Sean, this is a guy, I expect Salomonson to be Josh Morrissey's partner within maybe 2 years, 3 at the max.
Okay, wow.
This is a guy is a really high end prospect as well. Same as McGroarty. Going to be a big time event. We know there's a lot of Canadians and Jets fans disappointed that Dom DeVincentis was a late cut, and that Colby Barlow's back injury prevented him from being in camp and making the team ultimately, and being in the mix. But there's still some key Jets prospects to be watching. I believe Fabian Wagner is also going to be in that Swedish team as well here. So should be a fun event coming up around the corner here.
I just wanted to close this out and say this because, Ken, I don't know. I know you sometimes don't get to hear the broadcast. D-Mart says the Lowry boost got him paid. This was really interesting. Derek Lalonde volunteered without anyone asking that Adam Lowry is the best shutdown center in the entire NHL. So talking about the accolades that's coming to Adam Lowry, a number of weeks back when Stahl was in town, I talked with him. He said it was an honor to be compared to Adam Lowry, which totally blew Adam Lowry away, as Adam Lowry has been trying to be just like Stahl his entire career. But if you thought people weren't noticing this kind of stuff, they get it now. And also, I shared this one as well. Hey,
Anthony Cirelli was on his team. Derek Lalonde was with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So
there you go.
That's a heavy compliment.
Well, and then this last thing, God, we've got lots of stuff we got to get in here yet, but there's just too many of these good stories to tell. The other day, and this guy would know it, head coach of the Colorado Avalanche comes rolling in and talks about the Winnipeg Jets and says, this is a measuring stick game, right? So I know we always have these conversations, and I know people know I'm not the biggest fan of them. Are the Jets elite? Are the Jets elite? For me, it's just about like putting a team together that's going to compete in the playoffs. I don't think being elite in December necessarily means anything, but I do think a comment like this means something, where Jared Bednar, who we know, Ken, is a phenomenal coach who coached what I believe 2 years ago was one of the most dominant Stanley Cup champs we've ever seen in the Colorado Avalanche. This is a guy that built that team basically from scratch, but took a scrappy team with a lot of good prospects and turned them year after year after year into a better team until finally they won the Stanley Cup. He referred to the Winnipeg Jets as a measuring stick game. To me, that is a massive compliment and tells you what we basically are seeing, Ken, on the broadcast, and what you're seeing behind the scenes as well. When other teams come in, a lot of times head coaches will always talk about the other team and they'll praise them and they'll do this and they'll do that. There's a different look in their eyes this year, Ken. It reminds me of what it was in 2018. Teams roll in here and they know they've got their hands full. They know that they're running into a team that they're not going to have an easy time scoring with. They know they're coming in to play a team that will break them if they're not on top of their game. Other teams prepare for the Winnipeg Jets as though they were one of the best, most difficult teams to play against in the league. All right.
Bednar also said Josh Morrissey was one of the best defensemen in the NHL, and if he played in a bigger Eastern market, he'd be getting a lot more love as well. And
no doubt,
Jared Bednar has a fairly good idea what a Norris Trophy winner looks like.
No doubt. God, he's got like 3 potentials on that roster. Okay, Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. I think I know what it is. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Rick Bowness openly said he needed more blocked shots, and there's Dylan Samberg blocking a shot on a Red Wings power play after the game had gotten a little bit tight for the Jets. It had been a 4-2 game, and as you said, they get the shot block, then they go get the reward, they get the goal very shortly after. And to me, that's another great example of Dylan Samberg taking that nice big step forward this year on that third pairing.
Absolutely nailed it. I'm not going to argue with it. That I would agree is the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And you run a small business in Canada, look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. Moving on, Ken, your keg save of the game. I think I know what this is too.
Oh, I think it's that crazy play that shot off the backboard and Dylan Larkin. It has it on his stick, and Dylan Larkin thinks he's got a backdoor tap, and Lauren Brossoit just sticks his left leg out. To me, I thought that there was a great chance for DeBrincat. I couldn't really tell if Brossoit got it or if it hit the side of the net. So that one was a honorable mention. But I thought that the save, just given the timing, and it was such a weird play. And Larkin Larkin raised his arms when he thought that a DeBrincat one-timer was in.
Right.
But that was absolute robbery on Dylan Larkin there, and I thought that was just a stabilizing point for the Jets at that time.
Well, and I got to say as well, the cross crease save that Lauren Brossoit makes on Alex DeBrincat. I know you would have liked to have seen, not that you want to see the goal, but hey, we're late in the show, over
work.
An hour in, over 500 people. Good job, everybody. I know you would have liked to have seen the pass a little bit faster. I still think if he puts it in the right place, it's unstoppable.
Yeah.
But I think that Lauren Brossoit sliding across the crease just shows how sharp he is to stop that Alex DeBrincat shot. That goes in the net. I think Alex DeBrincat scores on that next one that you're talking about, where Larkin raised his hands because he's feeling it more. You can see he goes to the bench and he's entirely frustrated because this is one of those times. I keep talking about the Jets and how they mentally break teams. I think Lauren Brossoit mentally broke some of the forwards tonight on the Detroit Red Wings. Phenomenal game by Lauren Brossoit. That's my keg save of the game. You heard Ken's keg save of the game, but
that's
neither
a tremendous
of our saves
one
of the
also.
game matter. It's your keg save of the game that matters. And why does it matter? Well, if you share with us your keg save of the game, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 locations of the keg here in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And someone did that last show, and that someone would be Jeff Johnson, who is the keg save of the game winner from the last show. You know what to do, Jeff, who we saw once again. Actually, we've got double winners who were also at the K&R party last time on December 10th. Great game to watch. Great to see Jeff Johnson, who couldn't make it there earlier, but showed up late, Ken, after the food, paid for the ticket, didn't get any of the goodies from it, but came to watch the podcast afterwards. Thank you for
support.
That, Jeff.
Yep.
I'm
Thanks,
glad
Jeff,
that you are getting paid off here because, Jeff, you have won the $50 gift certificate to the keg. You know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Give me your full name and your email address, and I will send you a $50 gift certificate to be used at any of the 3 fine locations of the keg here in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Moving on to the TCB Lamplighter of the night. What do you got, Ken?
Oh man, it is really hard to differentiate. To be honest, there's some there's the exceptional vision of Cole Perfetti for the tap in. There's the soccer special by Nikolai Ehlers, but I love the burst of speed. And anytime that Nikolai Ehlers says Axel Jonsson-Fjällby might have had the fastest skater I've ever seen, and Jonsson-Fjällby quick to dispute the claim, saying, I guess Ehlers doesn't watch himself. I love the play. Stretch pass by Dylan Samberg. He caught Shane Gostisbehere at the end of his shift, kind of spinning off the boards. It was a great take by Jonsson-Fjällby. He exploded into the zone, picked it up with speed, and then rips his shot past James Reimer. First goal of the year. And Sean, this is a guy who went from playing great against Colorado to being a healthy scratch. All of a sudden, we're seeing Rasmus Kupari in a yellow jersey. He's on the ice. And guess what? When Rasmus Kupari's ready, Jonsson-Fjällby, your spot is in jeopardy. So what do? Rick Bowness said he wanted his 4th line to produce. Well, I went out and produced if I'm Axel Jonsson-Fjällby. And that's why, despite some of the other highlight reel moments in the hockey game, including, I should also mention, that pass, Sean, that Gabriel Vilardi makes to Nikolai Ehlers. Absolutely exceptional. He gets the defenseman leaning one way, and as he's moving towards him, he passes it right from where he just came from, and Ehlers has the little flip shot. But I think the Janssen Fialbi goal is just exceptional.
Great breakdown by Cheech on that, by the way, who says that it's the goaltender's responsibility to try and stop that pass, but because Gabe Vilardi takes it behind the net so strong and basically on a near impossible angle to exactly what you're talking about, he leaves the post because of that, and that's what opens up the pass. And then basically Ehlers recognizes that when the pass comes, the instinct by Reimer in that situation is to get back to the post because that's where he should have been to stop the puck. And then Ehlers gets him going to the far side where he had been going, becomes popping across. But I agree with you. The AJF goal, the speed at which he takes off after he does the spinorama to pick off that pass is insane. It is elite skating out there. Now, I know AJF is not known for scoring a lot of goals, so I'm not going to get into elite, scorer mode here. But that move of him picking up that pass the way he does and the speed that he generates after taking the pass is insane. I agree. TCB Lamplighter of the night. That's my Lamplighter of the night. That's your Lamplighter of the night, Ken. But again, what we say doesn't really matter. What does matter is what the fans of the show here think. So you know what to do. Share with us your Lamplighter of the game. You are automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your 8-pack, well, you can head on down to Trans-Canada Brewing Company and pick up some yourself. Join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston, where we will be having the Kenny and Renny January for Fanuaries. Let's throw this back up. Tickets to the event are on sale. It's going to be happening on the 22nd of January, a Monday. Great game. Jets are playing Boston next, so we'll see what happens in that game. But if you want to watch live with us what happens in the game after that, it's a Monday night hockey game. Boston Bruins, Winnipeg in Boston to visit with them. We will be having the event again. Same drill. First drink is free. All your pizza, all night, all the food. It's great. We had such a great time with you. I know that TCB was absolutely ecstatic and felt honored by how many people showed up. We want to do it again because we love unlocking that big room for the party, but we need a certain amount of people if we're going to do that. So you know what to do. Head to Eventbrite. If you can't follow this link, just go to Kenny and Renny Eventbrite, January 22nd, and it'll take you to the event. We would love to see you there. And that brings us to our Lamplighter, which, as I said, goes to someone who was also at the first party on December 10th, and that would be Lee Ballingall. Lee, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name, which I know is Lee Ballingall. Send me your email, and I will send you your voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company.
Quick one here. Got a great text from Jason Bukala on his way over to Sweden. He weighed in on the Jets today through 30 games, and folks should check that out. Don't just.
He's a believer.
Yep,
he's a believer. Before we do go, Maul saying that Maul never wins. I believe you won last year and didn't claim the prize, Maul, or was that Bic Ronis? One of the two of you won and didn't claim because you didn't want me to know who you were. I will say this too, Maul. I wouldn't quit on this because for certain shows, I have to make sure I have a backup. And you were the number 2 spot to win the Lamplighter this year for one. So if that person wouldn't have claimed it was actually going to you, just because I wasn't sure of the authenticity of the first person in that case. So keep trying, buddy. We believe in you. One day you will be the Lamplighter or the keg save of the game. You just got to stay at it. You got to. Hey. The best ability is availability is the line that's been going around lately. Keep yourself available for the award, and it's going to come your way. That's it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Before I do go, I just wanted to say, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing Company, Sweet Lou Furlan, Cambrian Credit Union, the Johnson Group, the Keg, and of course, TransCanada Brewing Company. Once again, not the latest of the nights, but hey, it's almost 12 o'clock. We had over 500 people in the chat
Awesome
room.
job,
They're
folks.
rocking it. Stole a bunch of ideas from them. Really, all I do is I peruse the chat room. I steal all your ideas. I pass them off as my own. And then
It's borrowing, not
people,
stealing, buddy.
I steal them, Ken. And then the very people who trash my takes, it's their own takes that they're trashing. That's the whole irony of the whole thing. They don't even know what's going on. I've been running this game for 3 years. One of these days, they'll figure it out. Anyways, great job by you, chat room. Always a great job by you, Ken. Appreciate your time. Can't wait to do it again. Last game before Christmas, everybody, as the Winnipeg Jets welcome the Boston Bruins for what should be an absolute banger coming up this Friday night. Can't wait to chat with you all after. Bye-bye, everybody.